Let's talk about Jason Bourne, this week's other lovable hero with memory problems, of course. This is a return to first principles for the Bourne franchise. Bourne Ultimatum was 9 years ago, and then they did that sidequel. I don't know if that's a word, but side sequel, little kind of side hustle thing with Jeremy Renner, The Bourne Legacy, 4 years ago. And basically, the idea is that, as Paul Greengrass and Matt Damon said in last week's interview with Simon, is that they want to explore the way in which Bourne would fit into the world now, which has, of course, changed enormously since the Bourne Ultimatum. So you've got the idea that there's, Edward Snowden-like data dumps of sensitive info is a part of this film. You've got social media, which, back in 2007 didn't really exist in any sort of anything like the way it does now, as being a major factor in this film. And you've got, the general populace are feeling vulnerable or unsafe in different ways to how they did in 2007. What it doesn't do is use all of these things to make a film that feels completely and utterly of this moment. Now, I've gone on about Michael Mann's Black Hat many, many times on the show before, and I will continue to go on about this film many, many times again. But that to me felt like a film where, a director is saying, right, okay, so we're going to use the architecture of, techno-terrorism and digital espionage, and we're going to use that and we're going to build a film using that architecture. This is very much taking new concerns and placing them on the old traditional Bourne framework. So you are going from chase to chase to chase to chase around the world, but it just so happens these chases are about different topics.
Yeah.
You've got on similar kind of power struggle to in the previous films. You've got on one side Bourne, the lone wolf, played of course by Matt Damon, who's being helped out by Julia Stiles as Nikki Parsons once again, who begins the film tied up with this WikiLeaks style operation in Iceland. And she unearths this vital information about the Treadstone programme and about Bourne's own personal connection to the birth of that programme, and also what the CIA is potentially going to do next along similar lines. And then on the other side, you have the CIA establishment, who are embodied by Tommy Lee Jones as this grizzled, craggy director. This is Tommy Lee Jones' face.
Just looking at his face. I couldn't stop looking at his face. It's like a collision of planets.
He has eye bags in this film that are like, coffee mug rings on an antique sideboard. They are just bam there, and he's got a great face for cinema and a great face for kind of worn down and gradually, slowly, as if sort of almost geologically corrupted over time. That's who he is.
It's like the Grand Canyon.
So you've got him, and you've got Alicia Vikander playing this ambitious new CIA recruit. Now, Tommy Lee Jones wants to bring Bourne down. Alicia Vikander wants to bring Bourne in. And here they are in the middle of a mission where they're both trying to achieve these two very different goals and not having a great amount of success with either.
Alpha Team, report.
What's happening, Heather?
Alpha Team isn't responding.
Bravo?
Still nothing.
You lost both teams? Get a grip on this operation, Heather. That's Bourne. Green light, yes, sir.
Sir, I need more time.
We have no time. Are you going to give that order or not?
Sir, please.
You're too naive to see the truth. There's no bringing in Bourne. He has to be put down. And you obviously cannot do what has to be done. I am taking operational control. Asset, you have a green light. Repeat, you have a green light on Bourne.
Copy that.
Copy that.
Copy that. This
Vincent
is a film.
Cassel.
Vincent Cassel plays the Asset, who I don't think is ever named over the course of the film, but he is this...
Jeff, he's called Jeff.
He's called Jeffrey Asset, and he is this assassin who is employed on the QT by Tommy Lee Jones to go and do nasty work that the CIA can't officially do. And he's just one of these great sort of Terminator-style unstoppable assassins. The Bourne franchise has done this before many times. Now, what's interesting about this is that you have, this is written by Greengrass and his editor, Christopher Rouse, and Tony Gilroy, who was greatly involved in the previous Bourne films, isn't present. And I think that really shows in the way in which this film... I think, it doesn't really tell much of a story.
There isn't, but then there is.
It runs for 2 hours, and it's incredibly pared down and streamlined. Matt Damon has very, very little dialogue. I tried to... I'd heard... Yeah, I did. I heard beforehand that he didn't really say much, so I kept a sort of a running tally of his lines. I counted 40. I doubt it's 40.
Lines or words?
This is lines.
Okay.
Lines of dialogue. So I counted 40 lines, and maybe, a couple that I missed. During the more sort of frantic back and forth, like during the Athens sequence, which we'll talk about in a second. But, you know, they're mostly 2 or 3 word questions or, you know, information dumps. He's just saying, okay, duck, get out of the way, you know, run, do that. Exactly. So it's very, very sort of pared down, all of the fat trimmed off so you can just barrel through. The film kind of, it picks up from the Reykjavik opening sequence where Julia Stiles' character is getting this information out of the CIA computers in the first place. From there, it goes to Athens, and then to Berlin, and then to London, and then to Las Vegas, and it just powers through. Bourne is still pretty much a blank slate in this, and of course, without much dialogue to conjure with, we don't really learn an awful lot more about him other than this nugget of familial info that she manages to dig up. The real character work comes from the CIA side. So, of course, we have Tommy Lee Jones, who we've already discussed, who is, I mean, he is effectively playing the Brian Cox role in this film.
But where did he come from? Because his character has not been referenced in any of the other films, has he?
No, I don't think he has done.
That's the thing. It's like, well, where's he suddenly popped up from? It's like, hold on a minute. It's like, you know, he was always coming for me. Was he? I've never heard of you.
Yeah, no, sure. So he is basically Brian Cox being the old weather-beaten grandee.
Yeah.
He is just taking on that mantle. And in fact, there's a scene towards the end that's very, very much like a scene that crops up, I think, in Bourne Supremacy, where they have that kind of meeting via exactly. So so there's that. You also have Riz Ahmed, who's the founder of this social media company called Deep Dream, which the film brilliantly just doesn't bother even trying to explain. I love when films start tripping over themselves talking about social media. Terminator Genesis, where it's like social media is killing the world, and social media looks like what, kind of clouds and a 9-year-old boy. I was like, I don't know what we're doing here. So this is just, Deep Dream is this incredibly popular social media app that Riz Ahmed's character has dreamt up and made a lot of money from, and he is kind of connected to the CIA in ways that are not immensely flattering towards his company. And there's this actually a great, totally Greengrass style shot where we meet his character. He's addressing on the stage of this tech convention. And you see Riz Ahmed's face kind of small at the bottom of the frame, and then this enormous Jumbotron style monitor behind him with his face blown large. And basically it's like, you know, you've got the Great Oz and the Little Wizard in the one shot. It's just this idea of, you know, one person's small ideas can become massively, massively influential. So it's tapping into these things, and actually with the Hillary Clinton email hack as well recently, it's even more topical than it perhaps intended to be. So that kind of stuff works well, but again, you don't have the necessary, I think, narrative gristle there to really get into the nuts and bolts of what's going on.
It's almost like it skims across all these little stories. So there's the Riz Ahmed story, then there's a Riz Ahmed connection to the Alicia Vikander.
Yes, right. So they supposedly went to university together and they know each other. They share this knowing look.
Yes,
as if...
but it's like we have no insight into that, and there's no unfolding or explanation of that. And then there's also this kind of Alicia Vikander and her drive and why she's kind of, you never quite know what side she's on as well. And it's kind of, you know, I just feel like you never get to know enough about the depth of the stories or the background to the stories to invest in it.
Yes, right. And, you know, goodness, I'm an enormous fan of Alicia Vikander. And in this film, I don't really know why she's been cast in this role. It feels almost as if she turned up on set and said, I'd really like to be in this. And they've just, you know, fired someone to make it possible. The fact that character as a rookie doesn't really make sense, particularly when she's given charge of like 2 teams of CIA operatives in order to bring Bourne in London. The sequence doesn't ring true in the conversations that she has with Tommy Lee Jones. If he is really her, you know, wildly superior commanding officer, it just doesn't kind of make sense that would happen. But I think the craft of the film, I mean, it is Greengrass doing Greengrass. There's the Athens sequence that we mentioned earlier, where this amid this, I think it's an anti-austerity protest, which is just, you know, police forces clashing with protesters in this square in the middle of the city, and then Bourne is kind of he's pursuing someone who is in turn being pursued and all this kind of stuff. And you can see there are maybe about 5 different narrative threads in this action sequence, and he is cut between them, and you kind of staying on top of them, spinning all these plates with total effortlessness. And then it comes together in this kind of cadenza of editing where he just like, I think it's built around a motorbike crash, a motorbike running into a car door, and you just have this bam, 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 like resolution. It takes enormous skill to be able to, you know, envision an action sequence as expansive as that, and yet bring it to this bottleneck of excitement like that. So stuff like that, I think, you know,
the car chase in Vegas.
And the car chase in Vegas as well. I actually wish, you know, generally, I think Greengrass uses the shaky cam style very, very well. I wish the car chase in Vegas had been slightly more cleanly edited, because
I felt sick.
I mean,
Felt a little bit sick watching it.
the
Just like,
stunt
"Whoa."
driving in that must have been.
Oh, I mean, they
extraordinary.
destroyed Vegas with the SWAT car. It just ploughed through everything.
Yeah.
Hotels, cars, streets.
And I think the Vegas sequence is where the film really sort of gets its pace and gets, really thunders along and does what it does best. I think, if you go to the cinema wanting a Bourne-like experience, Jason Bourne will give you that. But I think to say it's at all on a par with the original trilogy, it just isn't.